Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to 90 Day Fiancé latest news. Once a guy on the ascent, Pedro Jiménez's name was known in Atlanta real estate as well as reality TV. Starting as a love story on 90 Day Fiancé, his path had grown to be much more than a monument to ambition, reinventions, and, for some, the American dream itself. Pedro arrived in the United States and was perceived as a driven young guy from the Dominican Republic, utterly in love with Chantel Everett. Though explosive and emotional, their relationship was the type ideal for perfect television. As they negotiated cultural divides, confronted Chantel's dubious relatives, and battled to show their love was true, viewers were riveted to their televisions. But behind it all, questions had always persisted. Always direct, Chantel's relatives expressed early worries. Pedro was accused by them of being an opportunist, someone who had wed Chantel for a green card rather than for love. They doubted his regular financial support of his family back in the Dominican Republic. She was being used, they cautioned Chantel. But Chantel stood by Pedro, blinded by love. Pedro battled those doubts for years, convinced his motives were pure. He put much effort toward starting again in America. He chose to distance himself from the reality TV drama and forge his own route once he got his green card. His passion became real estate. He immersed himself into it, laboring ceaselessly to establish a reputation in the business. And it worked, at least momentarily. Pedro changed himself into a real estate sector rising star for Atlanta. He was no more simply Chantel's husband, or a reality TV star. Closing big transactions, dressed the part, driving pricey automobiles, and surrounding himself with people who took him seriously, he was a businessman. Images of opulent mansions, professional headshots, and inspirational notes about achievement and tenacity abound on his social media. He looked to have moved past the controversy. The marriage started to fall apart, though soon. It was first faint, the conflict between Pedro and Chantel, the distance separating them, the weariness in their exchanges. Then followed the charges. Chantel said Pedro had grown icy and disconnected, more preoccupied with his profession than with their marriage. Pedro, on the other hand, stated that Chantel showed little encouragement of his aspirations. They battled fiercely, and the gaps in their marriage became intolerable to overlook. Their life was rocked when Pedro at last sought divorce. The split looked terrible, public messy. Chantel accused Pedro of manipulating her from the start, therefore rekindling the doubts her family had always carried. Pedro painted himself as a man who had just outgrown the relationship. Admirers of the family Chantel sided, some supporting Pedro while others said she had been correct about him all along. But neither of them anticipated that their divorce would start a domino effect that would bring Pedro down. Not long after the breakup, immigration officials got an anonymous tip alleging that Pedro's marriage had been fake from the beginning. Rumors circulated suggesting that Chantel's relatives had provided this information. It had been about getting a green card, not about love. Pedro had created in the United States, all of which was based on lies. Federal investigators looked at Pedro's immigration background. They went over every document, every interview, every instant of his broadcast marriage to Chantel. Examining every dispute, every proclamation of love, every moment where Pedro had seemed less than real, they searched video from 90 Day Fiancé and the family Chantel. They chatted with business partners, erstwhile acquaintances, even former neighbors. The decision then descended like a hammer. Pedro had a revoked green card. The court decided his marriage had been a fake setup meant to get U.S. residence. Legally speaking, Pedro had twisted the system, not earned his right to remain in America. The repercussions started right away. Pedro's whole universe collapsed overnight. His profession in real estate, which he had so laboriously developed, fell apart in a few days. Customers left offers, reluctant to engage with someone guilty of immigration fraud. Once pleased to have him among their top agents, his brokerage company severed relations with him and removed his name from their website. Colleagues who had always respected him stopped picking calls. Once admirers of his hustling, the same folks now wanted nothing from him. The hardest blow of all then came from immigration authorities moving in. Pedro was hauled into jail and imprisoned while his deportation decision was still under review. Once a man who strode boldly through million-dollar homes shaking hands with influential clients, he was now behind bars wearing a detention center uniform and confronted a destiny he had never anticipated. The word got around like wildfire. The scandal burst entertainment blogs, gossip columns, and social media. Some people felt sorry for Pedro as they thought he had only been caught by a system designed against foreigners. Others, especially those who had always questioned him, welcomed his death. "This is karma," some of them tweeted. "Chantel's family was right all along." Chantel said nothing through it all. People close to her believed she lacked compassion for Pedro's situation. She had spent years standing with him even when her family had urged her to see the reality. She was also at last free of Pedro as he suffered the results of his deeds. Pedro, meantime, sat in his cell staring at the chilly walls and went back over every choice he had made to get to this point. Had he ever loved Chantel really? Had he at some time come to believe in their marriage? Alternatively, had he always understood, deep down, that this was the unavoidable result? And where would things go next? Would he be deported back to the Dominican Republic under disgrace? Would he fight for an appeal, so clinging hard to the life he had created? Alternatively, was Pedro Ximénez's American dream ending here? The response was not very clear. Pedro's narrative was clearly no longer one of success, ambition, or reinventions, though. It had evolved into a warning about dishonesty, about manipulating the system, about the frailty of a dream erected on weak ground. And one issue stayed unresolved while the globe observed his collapse. Would Pedro Ximénez ever resurfacing? Or was his story really ending here? This gossip is over. If you liked the video, then give your opinion in the comment box and stay with us by subscribing the channel. Thank you.